Hello everyone, I hope you're all keeping well, healthy and happy. In this video I thought I would talk a little bit about why every moment in life matters. Okay? Why does it matter? Well, because we have a limited amount of time on this earth. We're given a certain amount of time to accomplish the things that we need to do in our lifetimes, whatever those may be. Right? And all too often, those needs that we have come up against the wants of other people, i.e. the expectations of others. And we're going to come back to this in a second. So, what prompted me to think about this, you might be wondering? Well, a friend of mine, a very close friend, recently experienced the loss of a beloved family pet, right? And one of the observations that was made by this friend was that many people might find this funny, or many people might find that odd or strange that my friend would be experiencing any form of grief. And I thought, that's interesting. And that's interesting because it spoke to the level of cynicism that we as a society have right now. Right? It tells me that the ability to empathize in people is diminishing greatly. And I thought, that's interesting. And then my magpie mind started to wander into other arenas, and I thought, well, is that true? Is it true that we've become less empathetic? Is it true that we are incapable of understanding grief, whether towards humans or other sentient beings? Is that the case? And I think the answer, unfortunately, is yes. Because if you look at the social ills that we're all facing, the very real and serious problems among us, for example, the homelessness epidemic and the way that we perceive the homeless, we're not doing anything to better their situations as a society, as a whole, right? There might be individuals trying to make that situation better. There are people that run soup kitchens, and there are people that offer the homeless blankets and shelters and places to stay. But by and large, we don't seem to be willing to do anything about that. And of course, among the homeless, 81% of that population are men. And men generally in society don't seem to get any empathy extended to them, if at all, you know. So there's a gender disparity always at play in most of these situations, but we do see that regardless of that, because some women get caught up in that as well. So if 81% of guys contribute towards the overall number for the number of people that are homeless, then that means that 19% are women, which is no small number when you consider the number of homeless people there are. It's the same thing with suicide rates. The suicide rates for men are through the roof, but they're also pretty high for women, right? Men in general are more affected by these things because, again, society doesn't like to afford men any empathy. These are just social attitudes and constructs that people hold when it comes to the way they deal with, or the way that they engage with, women and men. Right? This could be due to biological reasons, it could be sociological. We can talk about that another time. That's irrelevant, really, in terms of the context of what I'm speaking about in this video. It's very relevant in other contexts, and I've spoken about that quite strongly. But let's get back to the point here. So we're seeing these problems, such as homelessness, such as suicide. We're also seeing the very real problems of physiological illness, right? And psychological illness. And we're seeing, beyond that, also the inability of people to understand the emotional states of others and how best to deal with those. And that's very interesting as well, right? Because if you take a look at people that are retirees or old people in general, people of pension age, this sort of thing, if you take a look at the levels of loneliness that those people are suffering, it's quite extraordinary. So when you look at all of these things, it's very difficult not to come to the conclusion that we have in fact become less empathetic. Right? Or perhaps we've just gotten better at keeping records of these things. That's also a possibility, although far more unlikely in my opinion, but let's say it is a possibility. Even so, have we become that cynical? Have we become that incapable of acknowledging the emotional fragilities of other people? It seems to me that that's the case. And that's an incredibly sad thing, because it tells us that the element of true care that is part of the human psyche is very quickly diminishing. And the thing about grief is an interesting one, right? The thing about grief is, if you are grieving for someone or something, and I have personal experience of this, that is the case because you have true care within you. The ability to care, truly care. And your actions demonstrate that as well for another sentient being. Right? But taken to extremes, of course, that is unhealthy. Right? You can't empathize with everything and everyone, especially people that you don't know or their situations which you don't know, right? That's not possible. And there are also people that will manipulate your own empathies for their own purposes. They'll manipulate your emotions in order to get something from you. Okay, this happens all the time. A great example of this, by the way, are those commercials that they put on with the people that are dying of hunger or famine in particular third world countries. You know, those charity commercials that you see. And those are designed to manipulate you emotionally so that you give freely to the charity. But if you break down the work that the charity does, yes, they're doing some really great work, but the majority of that money is being misused, misappropriated, misallocated in many, many cases. Right? It's all about profiteering. It's all about manipulating people's emotions. That's one example of it. Governments do that too when it comes to taxation, by the way. They'll try and emotionally manipulate you. You know, they'll say, oh, look at the crisis in such and such an area. Great, okay, now give us your money. Right? So there's all kinds of levels of manipulation of people's emotions because people are easy to manipulate emotionally. But let's put that aside for a second. Right? Because those are things... See, what's happened is that people have become shut out from their actual personal lives, from being able to contribute something to their actual personal surroundings, to their emotional surroundings. And instead, their focus is being misdirected to things on a grander scale, which they may or may not actually be able to do something about. Right? Think about it from this perspective. If every person on this earth, every single one, 7.2 billion people, remember, right? If every single one was doing something to alleviate their own problems or the problems of those in their own close social circle, if every one of them was doing that, do you really think we would have the number of problems that we do? No. Right? Because it all begins with the individual. But the collectivist mindset doesn't see it that way. That's more about, well, let's try and just throw gobs of money at something in order to fix it. And that doesn't work. Because people aren't willing to actually put the effort in that is also required. See, everything actually starts with effort and with the energy that you expend and put into something. That's actually what true care is, by the way. That's what real empathy is. If you really feel badly for someone or something, you will stand up and do something for them. Right? But that's gone. It's been replaced by this hollow sort of manipulative phenomenon. Hasn't it? Because again, people wouldn't be suffering from loneliness if we were actually putting in the time and the effort into developing our personal relationships. Right? Friendships and other types of relationships. They all take effort. They all take hard work. Okay, they all take hard work. Whether it's your relationship with your parents, whether it's your relationship with your siblings, whether it's your relationship with your children, or just your friends, all of these things require maintenance. Okay? But grief is a good sign. Grief is an excellent sign. And people will say, what are you talking about? Grief is terrible. The emotional pain that comes with that. My goodness, the psychological angst. That's all true. Grief is a painful emotion. But it's there to remind you that you care. You are capable of caring. That you are not some emotionally dead zombie. Although you may have moments in life, and everyone does, it's not like anyone gets away scot-free from this. Everyone has moments where they feel emotionally dead inside themselves. Right? And that's the other trick that the system, if I can call it that, uses, which is to manipulate you into believing that if you're emotionally disconnected at some stage for a brief period of time, well, there's something wrong with you. No. You're just finding coping mechanisms for either the experiences that you've been through or the experiences that you are going through. Okay? So, let me bring it back again to the main point. Why does every moment matter in life? Well, because we don't have that long. We really don't, right? And coming back to that question of why we waste away so much of our time. I mean, look at the pointless things we do. There are people that stare blindly at their phones all through their day. That is not a productive action. Right? That is not a productive action. It's a good way to keep in touch with people, sure. Okay? That relationship maintenance thing I was talking about, it's great for that too on lower levels. On lower levels. Right? But it is useless on the grander scale. Alright? Because what it's doing is isolating you. It's insulating you from real life. And the more insulated we become, look at what happens. The less and less we are capable of interacting with others. There are not many people on this earth right now today that are capable of effective or good communication, that are capable of maintaining those relationships we were speaking about. They're just incapable of doing it. And this is particularly true of the younger generations. And they suffer a lot through that as well. It causes them pain. Why? Well, because no one has come along and told you that your every single moment, everything that you do matters because of the laws of cause and effect. Right? So you need to use your time wisely. You need to use your time not just wisely in terms of being productive for your studies or for work, but you have to use that time wisely in the sense that there are things that we require as human beings that are not purely of the financial type or of a work-related type, right? The satisfaction that you get from doing a good job, for example, is in no way, shape, or form comparable to the satisfaction that you get when you have done something for someone or that they have done for you, right, that was totally unexpected. There's something for you to think about. Okay? But in today's society, of course, we're not teaching young people how to live. We're not teaching, and it's not just true of young people. Who screwed it all up? Well, it's the older generations, right? It's the older generations who experience the same kind of problem of being able to articulate their emotions well. Okay? Because each of those situations in which you find yourself in life that involve other people or other sentient beings, those are the things that add a sense of meaning to your life. Without them, your life really has virtually zero meaning in real terms. Like you might, here's a great example. You might invent the very best product that's ever been invented in the world, let us say, right? You might be a technological marvel, a true revolutionary in the technological world. You might make something that has never been made before, right? But what have you really contributed? Okay, you maybe have made some people's lives a little bit more or less easier in some regards, or you might have just given them a product that was totally unnecessary, but marketed it to them in a way that was that made it sell well, or whatever else, right? But what have you really contributed? In a very real sense, I mean, to the people around you. You see? Because when you die, and we're talking about death here, I suppose, in a sort of morbid sense, but it's important because when you do eventually die, what are you going to be more proud of? Right? The fact that you've managed to invent something, or the fact, or maybe write the best play in the world, or produce the best movie in the world, or whatever else, right? And that's entirely, all of these things are entirely subjective to some degree. But are you going to be more proud of that, or the fact that you actually managed to improve the lives of people in your immediate vicinity that means something to you? I'm going to wager it would be the latter. Right? So, when you look at life, the important question is, how are you using your limited time? There's the question. How are you using your time? Are you just whittling it away idly by, just watching it pass by, waiting for that moment that eventually you're going to be on your deathbed? Or are you living it in a way where you are making a real difference and other people are making a real difference in your life and theirs? See, that's the question. And all too often, it's easy for people to get conned into believing that their careers are going to mean something to them. If you ask every successful person on the face of this earth whether their careers were more important, or perhaps their family life was more important, or their friends were more important, they'll give you the same answer. The latter is always more important than a career, or having lots of money, or whatever else it might be, right? Because they've learned that. They've learned that, either the hard way or the easy way. They've learned it. There is nothing that can replace the human bonds or the bonds that we have with other living beings. There really isn't. You know. And this constant expectation of others that we should conform to their ideal, when their ideal is a broken one, it is a flawed one, and it is a destructive one. Right? It's incredibly destructive to think that everyone should think the same. That everyone should be equally cynical. No. I refuse to believe that. Sometimes there will be people who are more cynical than others, and there are times when that's called for. Other times there are people that are extraordinarily empathetic, and you need that as well. See, for a society to be healthy and balanced, you need both things, but what's happened is that we're all the time, it seems that we're choosing between extremes. We're constantly choosing between extremes, and we're never getting anywhere because of that. In fact, society is becoming more self-destructive as a result, not less. At least that's been my observation. Maybe you feel differently about this, I don't know. But I'll wrap it up here and simply say that every moment does matter. Every single moment in life is a blessing in a sense. And I don't mean that in an etherical sense or anything like that. I just mean that every single opportunity that comes your way to make a difference is profound. And you've got to treat people well in life, if possible, right? Particularly the ones that matter to you. Your family and your friends and your significant other, perhaps, right? That's where it is. That's where the real deal is. You know? And I think that applies to sentient beings. It applies to pets as well, right? It applies there as well. So keep yourselves above the water by refusing to conform, by refusing to give in to the expectations of people who are imprisoned in their own minds. This is what I would say. And don't second guess yourselves. Don't ever second guess yourselves for your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, because there's no point in doing that. What's done is done. What's said is said, right? And more importantly than that, be unapologetically yourself. Why should you be what someone else thinks you should be, or who someone else thinks you should be? That's idiotic, trying to live up to that ideal. You'll never manage it. And this is another area where we've gone wrong as a society constantly, right? Is other people tell us what they expect us to be, and we try and fill that very bizarre, low-resolution void of an image of that expectation that doesn't make sense. Okay? It just doesn't make sense. Because we can't be that, no matter how hard we try. A fish cannot become a butterfly. And similarly, a bluebird can't become a donkey. It doesn't work that way. You can only be true to your own nature. Okay? If you feel like crying, cry. If you feel like smiling, smile. Right? If you feel like being a crotchety bastard like me, be that way too. It's great. It's great for your health to be who you are, to be expressive of who you are, or what you're thinking or what you're feeling. Right? There's times when you need to hold that back, sure. I'm not saying that that's not the case, right? Just because circumstances demand it sometimes. Sometimes you might think or feel something that is totally ego-driven or self-centered or whatever else, right? That happens. And we all make those mistakes. It's not like anyone gets off scot-free from that either, right? But I would say that it's illogical to judge yourself for the things that you've done or for the person that you are. All you can try and do, logically, is to become a better person every day. Become a better person. Be a better person. That's what you're aiming for. Right? And that's a tough thing to do because people can't make the distinction between expectations of others and legitimate concerns of others. That's another problem. Or perhaps the two are somehow interconnected, I don't know. But I think there is a subtle difference in them. So just be yourself, is my point, right? But before you can do that, of course, you have to learn who you are. And I guess that's part of the process of growing up and becoming an adult and then experiencing adult life for the first time as well. You know, you have to know who you are. And by the way, that's not just true of young people. It's true of middle-aged people. It's true of old people. Many people go through lives that are lived very long and they never ever learn who they are, what their own thoughts and feelings and ideas about something are. Because they're caricatures of ideas and ideologies that have been put in their heads by other people. And part of using your time wisely on this earth is finding out who you are and being okay with that. You know, you find out who you are, you live with it, you see if you can be a better person tomorrow, and you try. And that's all anyone can ask of anyone else, is that they try. You know, that they have taken on or undergone the journey of self-knowledge. Anyway, those are my thoughts on this. Those are just some rambling, meandering ideas that occurred to me. And I thought that it was important to talk about it because, as I say, way too many people are wasting their lives away. Way too many people have sacrificed their own inner empathy and their own care, their true care for others. And it's necessary to a degree to have empathy, to have compassion. You can't have too much of it, but you need enough of it that you can be of use to your fellow human beings, particularly those who matter to you, who have meaning to you. Okay? Anyway, I'll leave it there for this video, but thank you very much for watching. Take good care of yourselves, and bless you.